Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the video. In this one I'm going to talk about the Utah Jazz again. I'm going to talk specifically about Rudy Gobert and why he is an incredibly underrated piece for you to win a championship in your league. So I'm going to first talk about why he is an incredible piece for your roster because he's generally underdrafted. Then I'm going to go into his stats that he provides and why he is a top performer. And then I'm going to talk about how, based on the landscape of centers, based on the availability to produce in certain stats, he is a guy that when you have him on your team, he's a guy you can consistently rely upon. Not flashy, but he is going to win you games and he's going to set you up in a good position to win a championship. So, first of all, with Rudy Gobert, the problem with fantasy basketball is that a lot of players get drafted by their name value and how talented they are necessarily, how popular they are, but that's not necessarily translating into stats. So you have these guys that are like along the lines of Rudy Gobert, who they're known, they're all-stars, but they're not flashy names that people are going to want to draft particularly high. So as a result, they tend to slip in drafts for no real reason. And then they end up, it ends up being not justified based on the level of production that they're producing. So for Rudy Gobert in particular, let's talk about how he helps your team. So generally Rudy Gobert is a guy that is not going to get drafted into the third or fifth round because of that phenomenon with fantasy basketball that I talk about where guys slip because they're not popular. But generally people that are taken over him, and I'm looking at the draft results from this year in general, so we had guys like Brandon Ingram taking over Rudy Gobert. Brandon Ingram is a guy that he produces good shooting stats and scoring stats, but he's not necessarily producing in the other categories. D'Angelo Russell is another good example of that. Chris Middleton is another good example of that. Fred VanVleet, I don't know why you would take Fred VanVleet other than the potential that he could have moving forward, but he's not an offensive stat guy. He's more of a defensive team system guy. That's not a good fantasy pick. And these are guys all taken over Rudy Gobert. And then you have Zach LaVine is another one of those. Zach LaVine is a good scorer, and he puts up very good scoring stats, and maybe he'll give you some assists here and there, but he's not really giving you too much in the other categories that's going to be generally beneficial. CJ McCollum is another guy like that. So as case in point, Rudy Gobert falls behind these names, but Rudy Gobert is, for the last several years, he has been top 5 in the league in rebounds. This has been a case for the last 5 years, given, I mean, we take out his season where he was injured and he only played 56 games, but Rudy Gobert is a top 5 rebound performer. He's a top 5 block performer. So he's going to essentially lock down these categories for you. And because he doesn't necessarily have a lot of range, almost all of his field goal attempts are dunks, so he's going to give you a high field goal percentage. So in points, you could always count on him for a double-double because his last 5-6 years of his career, he's been averaging a double-double in points and rebounds. But he's also going to give you blocks. He's also going to give you a high field goal percentage. So this is very good value for points league and for categories league. So why do people pass on him then? I'm not really too sure, but the point is that if this guy slips in the draft, this is somebody that you must take because he's not being drafted higher than his value. I would not advocate Rudy Gobert to be a first-round pick, but because he generally slides into the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, that is an excellent value to pick up. The other thing that he does is he covers categories for you. So in my strategy in fantasy basketball is that, especially when you're in a categories league, you want to get guys who can produce and dominate a particular stat category so that you can always give yourself a chance to compete. That's why generally in the first round I'll draft Steph Curry or Dame Lillard. If I can't get one of those guys like Jokic, LeBron, etc., who's going to give you triple-double potential, because they'll lock down a stat, in a specific stat in terms of threes. So Steph, if you have him, you're always going to be competitive to win threes every week because he's going to go off for potentially 6, 7, 8 threes in a game at a given time. Same thing with Rudy Gobert, but he does this with rebounds, blocks, and field goal percentage. He gives you very good stats in those areas. He's going to be among the league leaders on your team, and especially like he had the other night when he had 29 points and 20 rebounds. Games like that can win you a week in rebounds. So incredible production there, especially for a guy who slips. And then another point I want to talk about is that this team is built around Rudy Gobert. I know that Donovan Mitchell is the leader of the team, and he is the all-star. He's probably their go-to guy, but the defense and the system is built around Rudy Gobert. They want to have a defensive identity. They want to have control the pace of the game, and they do this with a dominant defensive center who can block shots, who can get rebounds. And now that the team is playing very well from behind the arc, making a lot of threes, it's going to open up this paint for Rudy Gobert, thus increasing his field goal percentages, thus increasing his offensive rebounds. So this is a great situation for him this season, and he's been playing pretty well of late in this win streak. So Rudy Gobert is a guy that he flies under the radar, and he's gonna be one of those. And I'm gonna talk about this as weeks and months go on, but he's a guy that you want to make sure that you have drafted on your team because he's going to probably slip, but he's going to give you some excellent production value. So, because the thing with fantasy basketball, this is why I make a lot of videos that talk about waiver wire ads, is that you don't win off draft, and you don't really win off trades either because trades are difficult to make, but you win off waiver wire additions. So, if you're in a position where you have a guy that's going to lock down a few categories for you, like points, rebounds, blocks, you could stream the other categories you need, like if you need a few extra threes in a game, if you need a few extra steals, assists, you can do that. You don't have to focus on getting bigs to just give you, rebounds, because you'll generally with Rudy Gobert, you'll always be competitive in rebounds. You could use the streams to your advantage to pick up the other stats to give you the extra few wins that you'll need for the week and help your team win those important matchups as the season goes on. So that's why Rudy Gobert is a fantasy basketball championship piece. If you like videos like this, please let me know and I'll keep making them. But yeah, thanks for tuning in and watching. So see you guys. Bye.